Hello everyone, welcome to this very special edition of CGTN. I'm broadcasting from the eastern Chinese city of Shanghai. What makes this special edition of CGTN's live stream is I'm going live from above in the air. Now I'm flying about 300 meters above the ground, so it's quite a unique experience over here. Now from above, I think I have a panoramic view of this area of Shanghai, and from above now through our camera you can see that red building over there, and we're approaching it. It is actually called the China Pavilion, and the China Pavilion is the largest national pavilion at Shanghai's 2010 World Expo, and also the biggest display in all the expos. And the China Pavilion's central location back then in 2010 of the expo implies that China actually acts as a host country. Hong Kong and Macau pavilions were tightly close to the China Pavilion back then, and the display started on May the 1st in 2010 and ended at the end of October at the same year. So thousands of tourists queued up to visit the pavilion. I could still remember that. And now through our camera, I think you can have a close look at the eavesdrop of the building. So it is very much like a pyramid upside down, but it's actually quite Chinese and reflects the Chinese architectural style. And you can see the beams coming out, and it is red, of course. That is the color of China. So I still remember that back in 2010 there were thousands, actually tens of thousands, tourists and travelers from all around the world, and they queued up to get into that building. And of course there were several highlights in that building if you get the chance to visit the pavilion. Chief among them, the famous painting Riverside Scene at Qingming Festival was showed in 3D way in the China Pavilion. Now I think in our camera now, through our camera, now you can see that we are flying above the Huangpu River. The Huangpu River is actually considered the mother river of Shanghai, and also it flows into the central region of the city. Shanghai is called the financial center of China and beyond. And now from above you can see that bridge over there, and that's actually one of the bridges, or I would like to call it the cable stayed suspension bridge, that would connect the western part of Shanghai and the eastern part of Shanghai. So every day there were thousands of people commuting between these two parts of Shanghai. In the past, actually, only around 30 years ago, and the eastern part of Shanghai was not that developed, but now it is quite different. A definitely different scenario. Of course, this year also marks the 30th anniversary of Pudong Shanghai's development. There will be tons of events happening. And now we are approaching the Shanghai Modern Art Museum, and below you can see some tall buildings around here. And from afar, it's a little bit foggy, I have to say. From afar, I think you can see that chimney there, standing there. Actually, that is not a factory. It looks very much like a factory from the outside, but it's actually the Shanghai Modern Art Museum. And of course it used to be a coal bunker, and in Shanghai there were countless industrial buildings being temporary ruins due to the relocation of factories, and some of them may be kept and most were replaced by new buildings or public nameplate, but some of them actually were kept as museums. Okay, so now you can see the cockpit, and what you are looking at are our pilots. Actually, this is my second time to do a live stream above in the air, and last year I still remember around the same time in November I did a live in Macau, and the same group of people. So I'm really, I definitely trust them, and they're quite experienced. And now what you're looking at through our camera, and we are flying around the Huangpu Bridge. Huangpu Bridge is actually the first bridge crossing the Huangpu River, and then it is linking the Pudong district, always say the eastern part of Shanghai, and the western part of Shanghai. So from above now you can see overall the length of Huangpu Bridge is over 8,000 meters. and with a bridge height of 46 meters, that's nearly around 50 meters or 50 yards over the water, and ships of up to 55,000 tons are able to successfully navigate below the bridge. And now I think through our camera you can see some ships actually navigating on the Huangpu River over there. And the construction, probably some history of the bridge. The construction started actually back in 1988 and would have finished by 1991. And now you can see the bridge and the roads down there. And actually this bridge plays a very important role in connecting two different parts of Shanghai, and also helps to facilitate the commute between people living in both sides of the Huangpu River. And now I would like to point out actually the towers that stand on each bank and are built of reinforced concrete and resembling the letter H. And I think from above you can see it is very much like a letter H over there. So we're flying across the Nampu Bridge, and I think for the next destination, so this is the thing. It is a very difficult, doing live from above in the air in a helicopter is actually quite difficult. It is not easy as it looks. Now you can see the cockpit, and the pilots need to talk to the air traffic control people, and then we need to change our route by minute, and they will talk to the director who is sitting beside me right now, and he will give me the directions as to where we're headed for the next destination. Yeah, it's a little bit foggy today, but we are flying a little bit lower, okay, so that you can have a better look at the view from there. Now in the camera you can see, and that is called the Yuyuan Garden, also we call it the Yuyuan Garden in Mandarin Chinese. It's actually a classical garden ranking among the must-see attractions in Huangpu district. And the gardens actually is not very big in size, but it contains all the elements that a classical Chinese garden should have. You can see the pavilions, the halls, the rockeries, ponds, and the cloisters. So they all have very unique Chinese characteristics. And now we're hovering above the pavilions. And actually, for those who have never visited there, the true treasure of the Yuyuan Garden is actually the exquisite jade rock. Once again, the exquisite jade rock. That is one of the three most famous rockeries in South China. And that rock actually has 72 holes, but now we can't see it because we're leaving this site. But there are altogether 72 holes. And what is interesting about this rock, if you burn a joss stick just below the rock, and the smoke will magically float out from all of these holes. So for the tourists or travelers who have never been here, definitely give it a go. Yeah, probably after the live I'm going to the Yuyuan Garden, I've definitely visited the exquisite jade rock. It plays a very unique status in the Chinese culture. And now from above we are flying a little bit higher, and from afar you can see the financial center of Shanghai. That is definitely the most iconic place in Shanghai, or probably in the world. When it comes to China, when it comes to Shanghai, you always see those buildings everywhere in the screens or in TVs or films and everything. And this is actually the financial center, or we call it Zujiazui. In Chinese, it lies on the east bank of the Huangpu River. Yeah, once again, Huangpu River is the mother river, and it is facing the Bund. The finance, or we call it the financial center, actually occupies over 10 square miles, and it studies with around 100 high-rise buildings. And now we are approaching those buildings from here. And this place is actually also called the Wall Street of China. And there were more than 400 banks and financial institutions from both home and abroad, including HSBC, the Citibank, the Standard Chartered Bank, etc. Okay, now we are approaching the White Magnolia Plaza. Yeah, actually, when I first heard about it, I was quite curious about the structure or the name of it. And then I did my research. I just learned that actually the city flower of Shanghai is white magnolia, and it blossoms extraordinarily early. When winter waned and spring comes, the white magnolia has already in full bloom before the Qingming Festival, or we call it the Tomb Sweeping Day. And so that is why the magnolia, actually, the flower or the names that many of the festivals, awards actually are associated with magnolia. And then that is a very important, we call it the symbol in the Shanghai culture. Now we are hovering around the Magnolia Plaza, or we call it the White Magnolia Plaza. And from afar you can see the financial center once again. And below there, down there, that is the Huangpu River. It's a little bit foggy, I have to say, but you can still see the silhouette of all of those tall buildings. And of course, if you have any questions, please leave your comments down below on Facebook or CGTN app or Twitter or Weibo or YouTube. Anywhere you can find us, and I'm going to get back to your questions as soon as possible. Even though I'm flying above there around 300 meters above there, I can still get some signal. And if you have any questions, please send in your comments now. I'll get back to your question as soon as possible. Okay, now we are flying towards the Bund area. So it's very much like coming to Shanghai and missing the Bund. It's very much like visiting Beijing and missing the Forbidden City, or you go to Paris without visiting the Eiffel Tower. So that is the beauty of the Bund. And what impresses the travelers most are the buildings over there. Okay, so once again, you can see the cockpit of our helicopter, and from above now you can see the Bund. Okay, let's continue our topic about the Bund over there. And what impresses travelers, including me, actually are the 52 buildings, over 50 buildings with various international architectural styles, which makes the Bund an exhibition of international buildings. So there is no doubt that the Bund is a fusion of Western and the Chinese culture, and epitome of Shanghai's history. It is a great place to explore Shanghai today and see the future of Shanghai, or the past of Shanghai, I would like to say. So this area actually used to be the concession region in the past. And the name Bund, probably many of our viewers must be quite curious about the name. The Bund literally means the embankment of a muddy waterfront. And before the 1940s, Shanghai was a small seaside town. The Bund was once a muddy towpath for boats along the Huangpu River. So that is actually when it got its name, the Bund. And then usually when it comes to the big celebrations or festivals or events, and people usually come over to the Bund to have their pictures taken and everything. Okay, now we are moving around, and you can see that is the in Chinese we call it Skyscrapers Hotel. So literally, its literal translation is Peace Hotel. So it is one of the oldest hotels in Shanghai. And then, of course, if you want to try the Shanghai cuisine or the most Shanghainese food and the cultures, everything, definitely give it a try and go there. Okay, so once again, for those who just joined us, this is CGTN. We're broadcasting live from above in there. Now I'm hovering over the Huangpu River, which is the mother river of Shanghai, so that you can have a better view, a panoramic view of the financial center of Shanghai. And now we're leaving the financial center, and then as we zoom out, you can have a full view, well-rounded picture of this place. You can see the tall buildings. You can see that a pointed building over there. Actually, that is the Oriental Tower. That is around 468 meters. So once again, it is around 470 meters. That is one of the tallest buildings in Shanghai. So basically, from almost every corner of Shanghai, you can see those buildings. Okay, and of course, now we are flying towards the Oriental Tower there, so that you can have a better view. And you can see that the base of it is very much like a ball, and from above that is another place, and that is actually an exhibition hall, or it's one of the best places where you can have a well-rounded picture or bird's eye view of the whole financial center and now we are flying around. We are flying around this area, and that is one of the tallest buildings now. That is actually the Shanghai Jianhua Tower. That is around 420 meters. And one thing that I would like to point out about that building, actually the fast lift of that building, the Jianhua Tower, takes 45 seconds to take the visitors from the basement to the viewing hall on the 88th floor. And now from above you can see the tallest building over there, and that is the Shanghai Tower. It's around 632 meters. Okay, that is over 600 meters. That is tallest building in China. And the exterior of the building spirals upward. I think you can see that from our camera. It spirals upward to the top with 1 degree twist per story to reduce the wind effect. Because as you go higher, and the wind will be heavier. So it's designed, the exterior design is very smart, and it is designed to reduce the wind effect. And now you can see this building, and this building is very interesting. Usually the local people like to call it the bottle opener, because the design, there is the hollow part in the middle. It's very like the bottle opener over there, but its name actually is called the Shanghai World Financial Center. It's around nearly 500 meters. That is the tallest flat roof building in the world actually. So that is very interesting. We have been hovering around the financial center of Shanghai on the Bund area. And then all in all, probably a recap of what we did just now. And we have visited the Bund and also the financial center and also the White Magnolia Plaza. All of the most iconic buildings in Shanghai or places along the Huangpu River. And of course, for many who have been living in Shanghai for many years, probably some of them have already visited all of those buildings. But for our viewers from other parts of the world, wherever you are, if you want to visit Shanghai, you should try all of those places. Okay. Once again, if you have any questions, please leave your comments on Facebook, Twitter, or Weibo, or YouTube, and we'll get back to your questions as soon as possible. Okay, we have got this comment on Facebook. Okay, sorry, the signal is a little bit poor from above there, but I'm trying my best. Okay, that is from Tamon Pamba, and that is on Facebook. And Tamon said, wow, so beautiful. Yeah, thank you very much for staying with us. We are flying above Shanghai. And of course, the reason why we're doing this live stream is it is very much like a preview of the 3rd China International Import Expo. It is about to happen in about 2 or 3 days time. And CGTN or CMG, the parent company of CGTN, and we have dispatched a big group to Shanghai, and then we're going to have a well-rounded report and coverage of this whole event. There were tens of thousands business professionals from around the world visiting Shanghai, and now the coronavirus pandemic or the epidemic has been brought under control in Shanghai. So if you come to Shanghai, of course still you have to do the nucleic acid test, and then you can come over to Shanghai if you're from abroad, and probably you're going to do the quarantine for about 2 weeks, and then after doing the nucleic acid test, and then you can roam around the city once again. You can visit anywhere you want. And this year, despite the headwinds from the coronavirus, there will be a huge turnout or attendance to the CIIE, the 3rd CIIE, the China International Import Expo. And there were altogether 6 categories for this year. Of course, when it comes to medical equipment and products, vaccines especially, that will be the catch of this whole event. And yesterday I visited the exhibition center, and all of the international corporations, they are preparing the booths, waiting for the potential buyers to come over to their booth to do business. So now in China, largely the epidemic has been brought under control, and the economic activity is back on track once again. So it is picking up once again for China's economy. That is why there were so many multinational corporations are coming over to Shanghai or to China to do business. and their operations now in China have already been back on the normal trajectory. Okay, so I think that's it for this edition of CGTN, and we're flying above the Huangpu River, the mother river of Shanghai, and visited some of the most iconic places in Shanghai, especially the financial center. And of course the CIIE, the third CIIE, is about to happen pretty soon, in about 2 days time or 3 days time. And the CGTN will give you a well-rounded reporting and coverage of this whole event. And you can of course follow CGTN app or Weibo, YouTube, and also TV, so that you can be connected or be posted about the event, of course. If you have any questions, keep commenting on Facebook, Twitter, or anywhere, and we'll get back to your questions as soon as possible. Of course, bye-bye. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.